Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us a second time today. I am your host, Noor Kyle.
Still, without changing at all. And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, so for those of you who have already joined us once today, thank you. You were here for our other talk this morning, which takes place every third Sunday of each month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time for folks who can't join us at this time, which is 6:30 p.m. Pacific time every Sunday. Some of you are quite enthusiastic, and that means a lot. So thank you. Yeah, so the YouTube spiel, which you've already heard today. Sorry, gotta do it again. Um, yeah, thank you for supporting us, whether you do that via interacting with our YouTube channel by commenting, subscribing, liking our videos. All of that's awesome. I really appreciated the birthday wishes
And
via
something that we didn't
comments lately. Yeah.
mention earlier today is that this week and this week only, we have a special on subscribing to our channel. You can subscribe to our channel absolutely free today only.
Today only, go for it.
Yes.
Dive right in. You can also, I didn't mention this morning. I didn't mention our email list, which is ever important, and our Facebook group. The links to those things are in the description. Uh, yeah, you can donate, which many of you have been doing generously. Thank you so much. As we kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and get this retreat thing together, we're doing a lot over here. And the help is appreciated. And if you really want to come along for the ride, of course, you can join us for the retreat, which is taking place September. We're all going to get together on August 31st in Delhi, in India, and we're going to take a journey to the Himalayan wilderness where we're going to spend time at a resort working on all of the things that we are unable to teach you in person because they're better taught face to face. And you can get special direct instruction on how to do the fundamental breath work and various movement practices. As Mushtaq described them this morning, they're like the Gurdjieff dances, but
Cooler.
cooler even. Yes. So hopefully more folks might come on board for that. There is still room and we would love to have you there. So if that's something you're interested in, you can sign up on the landing page, which will also be in the description, and that will get you on the mailing list so you can stay in the loop on updates and such. That will also give you the information you need to register should you choose to do so. So all of that's there. It's good stuff. You should check out the resort. It's beautiful. If nothing else entices you, that just might do it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
It's by far the most luxurious retreat we've ever done.
Yeah. And like I often say, they're all going to be different. This is a unique trip this time. So every time is going to be its own little universe. And if you want to come along to visit this one, then definitely do. All right. So without further ado, let's get to the talk, shall we?
All right, what are we talking about?
Gosh, we are talking about something that has a lot of connotations of being stuffy and boring and uh you know, you might think of like Emily Post when you think of manners or something like that, where you have your special forks and your napkin has to be a certain way, but we're talking about etiquette and manners in a totally different sense this evening. And it's a traditional concept. And I was going to look up exactly how to pronounce it beforehand, but I didn't. So I'm going to call on you guys to make sure we get this right. Adab. Adab. How do we pronounce that best?
Adab.
Adab?
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. So that's what we're going to be discussing tonight, adab.
And what does that mean?
What comes up for you Arabic speakers when you hear that word?
Humility?
That's a good word. Osama, how about you?
It's interesting. I would have not thought of that. Um, Manners. I think the etiquette, the same way that you guys described it, but with I think with a lot of baggage, I guess, on my side.
Yeah, unfortunately, that word has been used as a bludgeon on people for some centuries now. And we would like to dispel that.
To the best of our ability. Yeah.
Yes. Adab is a way of behavior that allows you to move through life as smoothly as possible with always the aim of your own awakening.
Mm,
We have a
Jones.
stranger.
Not a stranger.
Not a stranger?
No. Someone we haven't seen in a little while.
Okay.
Okay.
So the interesting thing, when I started learning about Adab, at first it was all about here's how you treat your teacher. And there was nothing about how your teacher treats you, which I found interesting. Subsequently, as I got mo better teachers, I learned that adab is a two-way street. Just as there is an adab of a student to a teacher, there is an adab of a teacher to a student. And that's something that people tend to forget, especially teachers. So we're going to talk about both of those things tonight. And the whole point of adab is to train you or give you a methodology of moving on your path with ease. You could say that if your adab is good, then the path walks itself almost. So, also from about 1,000 years ago, the teachers of our particular tradition have at least once in a generation put out what the adab is for being on this path, and they update it, which makes me happy because the first of those that we have is from Abd al-Khaliq, one of the Khwajagan from our tradition, and it has some things in it that do not work today. Today they would be bad adab. And that freaks a bunch of people out because this is supposed to be totally sacred. And once it's written in stone and nobody can ever change it. But that's not the Sufi way, Ralph. So I'm going to go over some of the basic ideas that we have that are important to us and create the adab of our particular line. And every facet of the work has this. Gurdjieff groups had their adab with, at least when Mr. Gurdjieff was alive. And they were very different than some other places, but We have ours. One of the first aspects of our adab is to understand that the teaching is created by the student and the teacher together. We touched on this for a moment earlier today. The teaching is not front-loaded from the all-knowing teacher to the dumbass student. Our adab says that everybody who is a true participant has a facet to offer to the teaching. And if we forget that, we lose the teaching. Does that make sense?
Yeah, seems to make sense to people.
Okay, good.
Ian, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was just going to. I particularly liked the quote that you started off the email about this with, about speaking from your own experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me see if I can pull that up real quick and reread it. Here it is. When you speak, take care to speak only from your own experience and your own state. You should not talk about things you have not lived. And this is Ibn al-Husayn al-Sulami.
Yeah, who was one of the people who wrote a really wonderful little book on futwa, which is spiritual chivalry, which is based in adab.
So thanks for bringing in that quote, Ian, to the
Yeah.
conversation.
So, and along those lines, we say your overall state must be founded upon skillfulness, self-discipline, and faith. Understanding that faith is not belief. Faith and belief may in fact be antithetical to each other, at least in the way we look at it.
So say that again. That was
Your overall state should be founded upon skillfulness, self-discipline, and faith. Skillfulness in the sense that you can actually do, that you understand the process and have embodied it. Self-discipline, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, as a synonym for self-control. And that means your behavior aligns with your goal. And faith is the internal connection, the knowingness that there is, in fact, a divine reality, the Tao, however you perceive it, that you are moving within. This a bit of advice comes from, I think, the fourth successor of Yusuf Hamadani. He said to his students, study the works of your predecessors, learn the principles laid down by the Prophet, and avoid the society of ignorant Sufis. What do you think that means? This is ideally, we're going to have some dialogue here. I'm not just going to read a list to you.
Frank, do you have a thought? I can unmute you if you need me to. or at least, yeah, there you go.
Uh, yeah, I do. This rings so true to me with the recovery rooms that I find myself visiting so often. And uh, I don't know, I just see this in my life. And I guess I'll explain more later on, but I just wanted to resonate with that. Yes, I certainly feel what is being said here. And when we talked about speaking only from what you know, that is such an important thing. I had asked previously on this channel one time, I guess it may have been about 8 or 9 months ago, and I wanted to know, how do you get somebody to really participate? If this freedom exists, then they have to know what they have to do. And the answer is, you have to do it yourself and become the example. And you can't just grab them by the ears and say, look, go that way. Now you have to walk the way you want them to walk, and
Yeah.
let them see it, and they'll grab it when they see that. At least that's been my experience. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to share.
And in your work, it's more important than in a lot of places, because the people you're working with have a bullshit detector that is redlining.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is why really the only people who can work with vets are vets. If you haven't gone through what they've gone through, it's nearly impossible to be able to even speak in a way where you can be taken seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah,
Ian,
I had to laugh at the I forget I forget now the adjective you used about the ignorant Sufis. Yes.
ignorant Sufis, yes.
Of course, I don't really know any Sufis other than you guys, but
Well, we could be ignorant.
I was just gonna say, you may have met them already.
no, but I was thinking back to, I've mentioned my long-term teacher before, and in the very early days, there was a lot of talking that was there was a lot of stuff brought over from India, with people saying it was satsang, which is supposed to mean talking the truth, but everybody was telling stories that they'd heard. I eventually actually walked away from that, and eventually came back, but things changed, and that no longer happens. But I just, in that phrase of ignorant Sufis, I just recognize those early days, the things I experienced.
That seems fair, and I think that it's not just ignorant Sufis, right? It's exactly as you're saying. So that is a recurring phenomenon.
Osama.
Yeah. This is I'm enjoying this topic because when I saw the email, I'm like, adab, and this whole baggage that comes with it, as a word, because it means a lot of things in Arabic. Like for example, they say al-adab al-Arabi, the Arabic adab, or Arabic literature. That's what that means also. Means proper, in manners. But now as we're talking about it, it brought the state of ihsan with adab, and adab seems like a lantern, a way to light up, a tool to light up the way, or maybe the way, for ihsan, for beautification of ourselves and the actions and that we do, that we take. So this new reframing is resonating. I just came down from upstate New York. We had a long overnight Sama ceremony, and the elder that came from Turkey was like, we're gonna try something new, and we're gonna mix classical acoustic sounds with, like, there was a DJ, like a set that was happening. And the idea was similar to what you just shared, Mushtaq, which is, how can this adab be, how can it grow? How can it evolve with the times? Which, again, the state of ihsan, the state of beautification comes to mind. It's never still. It's always dynamic.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's always behavior. Adab is our guide to our behavior. To give you another example, always do your prayers in congregation when you can, but never undertake the call to prayer and never lead the prayer yourself.
So this sounds very Islam specific, but if we unpack it,
Yeah, let's
it's more-
unpack it and understand what it's saying. It's basically saying, don't put yourself forward as being important. Ideally, the person who leads the prayer needs to be the one most knowledgeable in Islam, in the Muslim world. And yet, to claim that can be really arrogant. And it's also limited. Even though in the lifetime of the Prophet, there were women who led the prayer, you don't see that today, except like there's one or two masjids where that's happening these days, and people are horrified. Oh no, we're gonna get cooties on us.
yeah, my undergrad capstone paper was all about that, and that is an ongoing painful discussion. The whole, who gets to lead prayers thing. Are men the exclusive holders of that position or not? All of that stuff.
Yeah, but for us, we avoid that.
Yep.
Be in the back. The back is more better. And
So,
along with that, yes.
no, sorry. So that's for in my experience, in that, when there's only two people who maybe can recite in Arabic, it's like, most of the time I'm put in that position. However, I don't know what it is, but when I'm standing up there, my body is shaking. It's like I would not choose it. My hands are shaking. It's like, I don't know how they do it, honestly. It's hard.
Yeah, and that's different than putting yourself in the place of being the imam. And that, when we talk about this, you got to make that distinction. if there's like 4 or 5 of us together, I'm gonna ask that the person with the best Arabic lead the prayer.
Sorry, buddy. That might be you sometimes.
Well, it has been me, and I pity the people who have to listen to me because no,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I have a thick New Mexico accent.
and
And
that makes it tough. Yeah, I was saying to Osama, you know, given his experience with Arabic as a living language for him, that's going to mean he's going to get put on the spot in many cases, and
yeah,
that's a difficult position, especially when it does create that sense of vulnerability and being spotlighted in a way that you did not ask for. Yeah. So I have empathy for that. But I mean, you're right, Mushtaq. That is it's going to be one of those situations where it's not your ego putting you in that position. Just like it wouldn't be for you, Mushtaq, if you were in a setting where, oh God, I have to use my southern accent Arabic to to do this thing right now. Sometimes we have to step up to the plate, but that is different from being like, pick me, pick me.
yeah.
Or it's mine. Of course it comes to me. I'm the one wielding the authority here. That kind of dominating sense of, oh, well, of course this is my seat. Who else deserves to sit here? No one, obviously. Nancy.
Yeah, I was thinking about the avoid the society of ignorant Sufis and generalizing it to being around ignorant people is a huge temptation to smugness. And, I don't know if you can or should completely avoid them, but you shouldn't seek them out.
Yeah, you don't have to avoid them, but if you know that a particular group is mired in mechanical behavior, you just don't go there.
Well, what happens if you do go there?
If
And
you're
why is it important to avoid them?
Because either you have to act as if you approve of what they're saying, or you have to be
Mhm.
rude and walk out, or
Mhm.
any number of other things that you might not want to do. And there will be
Mhm.
no value for you there.
Mhm.
Yeah. I once was in a group of dervishes where their teacher insisted that the women in the tariqa that he ran could not have ultrasounds because ultrasounds would alter the DNA of the baby.
Oh God.
That is a fucking ignorant Sufi. I'm sorry, but it is. And I had to leave because otherwise I would have called him a liar to his face and probably had to fight my way out, which would have sucked.
Yeah. Um, I can think of non-Sufi settings in which, I was around other quote unquote spiritual people who were really interested in like uh kind of the intersections of like shamanism and social justice, for instance. And I thought that that was a kind of cool scene, but as I became like immersed in it and I started to get to know the people there, in this particular group, there was just something very, they were all caught up in their own stories. They were very much about kind of reinforcing their assumptions about the world instead of, looking at them with some kind of curiosity and perhaps critique even. And there ended up being a lot of drama as a result. There was a lot of rivalry there too. There were people who were kind of jostling to, I guess, be the, I don't know, like the shaman master of the group, so to speak. And that was an environment in which I felt like whatever good there is here, it is not enough for me to stick around. I do not want to engage with this. So I pieced out, and no regrets about that. I mean, that kind of material I can engage with in a way that feels healthier for me without having to get sucked into the social jockeying and weirdness that came with it. Or if you hang out with a lot of like tech bros and all they do is talk down about people. I mean, when you're in an environment of with people who are not just benignly ignorant, but like toxically ignorant. Whitney.
Yeah, just on that, I know they say you become most like the people you hang around. So you're surrounding yourself by ignorant whoever, you become like them.
That can definitely be the case, yes.
Something that this topic of Adab reminds me of is a work aphorism that says, come under more laws to come under fewer. And so putting these boundaries on yourself of your behavior or where you put yourself opens up in, the sense that the aphorism's talking about freedom in another dimension. Yeah.
And that's a good example of fourth way adab. So let's give you one of the big ones. Don't ever seek for fame, because in fame lies calamity. That's the first of a interesting list. But this is something that has been a tenet of ours since forever. We're like Malamati light in that sense. We're not interested in being famous people, because the moment you're famous, everybody has an idea of what and who you're supposed to be, and that idea has weight. It has mass, and it will follow you around and try and shape you into an image of your own fame. So better not to be famous.
Mushtaq,
Yes.
I was wondering, is it okay to comment? I'd
Yeah.
like to ask you a question, just for clarity. I recall recently going over one of your videos, and you talked about a bee attuning itself to receive the pollen. As I try to recall what it was, a bee is attracted to a flower because of the color and then the fragrance, but once it lands, it has to, it's there for the nectar. And then as it attunes itself to that, that's when this happens, the pollen, that's when the cross-pollination happens, or the pollination jumps onto the bee or what have you. I'm wondering, you're saying that if in this regard of fame, is that like an attuning that we're talking about of direction or motivation or
It could very
innermost
well be.
guide or desire or something?
It could very well be. I hadn't thought of it in that particular way, but I suspect you could very well be right about that.
I notice that when I have an opportunity to speak with somebody and we have had similar experiences, that when we discuss those experiences, that there seems to be a certain connection that I get. I'm not trying to talk anything magical or anything. It's very simple. It just seems like we develop more of a deeper relationship, and there seems to be more trust. Um, and a lot of those things, I'm just wondering, I've had other people that tell me that um, as they critique other people, they talk about, well, their motives just weren't right. And, I know it's a difficult thing to realize your motives, especially if you, or for me, especially when my motives have been driven in such a way, so askew from reality that it's difficult for me to realign myself. And I'm just wondering if this is what you're talking about, because it's specific. I can understand that.
Yeah, it's very close. Noor and I love watching videos about cults because we learn so much about what not to do. And we were watching one a couple nights ago, and one of the our Adab, it's actually the next one from this, is as a teacher, never point to yourself.
Yes.
And we'll explain what that means.
Yes.
But one of the characteristics of cults is that there does seem to often be this emphasis on seeking fame, on seeking notoriety, and on pointing to the self.
Yeah, and claiming authority in themselves.
Yeah.
I can do this for you. I am the only one who can help you. I have the way.
And sometimes, bizarrely, it starts off in a very, these people have benevolent seeming intentions in the beginning. Maybe they really, prior to buying their own press, they are trying to help people and they want people to know them so that they can reach them and help them. But then somehow it just goes sideways and they end up becoming the center of this universe in which it's all about them, to the point where people start becoming harmed by that as opposed to helped by that. And I think when fame gets involved, you're constantly at risk of that.
I believe that I've witnessed something very similar to this when people that have worked with others and they're trying to resolve issues that they haven't any clue. I'm not a psychiatrist, and neither are the people that I'm working with. And they've had some successes, and I think they charge in trying to work with other people, and they feel that they're so confident that it's going to be some way, and they're not really aware of what's happening and what's going on. And this Adab that you speak of, I would imagine it's a connection that I felt that when you're really communicating with somebody, when you're really listening, and you could tell they're really listening to you. In Maurice Nicole's studies, I've varied limitedly with him, but to try to see myself through somebody else's eyes pulls me deeper into them.
Mm-hmm.
It frees me up from my motives and my inhibitions. I'm not fearful, or I'm on a quest. That is what I liked about what Mushtaq was saying about attuning yourself to this. What am I attuning myself to? Am I attuning myself to receiving, or am I trying to be the transmitter? Because I'm a better receiver than I'm a transmitter. And if I'm only awake to see, if I'm awake to see what's given, then maybe there's an overload. I can't understand everything that's given, but I can at least see it and start the path. If I latch on to somebody whose beacon doesn't shine, well, you know, I mean, hell, I'm gonna run out of territory in a hurry. We have a glide slope for that, you know. So, so anyway, thanks for letting me rant.
Of course. Osama.
Yeah, this the idea of these 2 points of adab, you know, seeking fame, and for the teacher not pointing at themselves. I was reading about this Sufi who started the school of Hurufiyya, which is like the study of letters in Arabic and Persian and stuff like that. It's like this own esoteric study. And this guy, I think his name is Fazlallah or something like that, Fadlallah, he at some point had dreams and visions and all this kind of mystical stuff. And he said, I'm the Messiah, I'm the Mahdi. And just took that role and went with it. Obviously, he was executed for that. You know, and being in Iran and, you know, Persia back then, I don't know what time it was, but yeah, how does, and you know, we kind of see it in even in the tradition, in the Sufi tradition and in other traditions also, right? When the teacher says, hey, now the veil has lifted for me, I'm seeing things, I am in this position. In order for you to be, quote unquote, to be plugged in to this thing, you gotta be plugged in with me. And I know we spoke about that, but how do these ideas fit in with this adab, these two points that you just
Well, it goes right to don't point at yourself. If you are the Mahdi, you don't need to tell anybody. You don't need to tell anybody, hey, you have to follow me. Because if you are the Mahdi, people will notice. How will they notice? Through your behavior, not through your words. And saying that you're the Mahdi a million times will not make it so. And if you have to tell somebody, you ain't it. And that's true for all of it. The Christian preacher who says, I am the way to God, is lying to you. The Hindu who says, I have Krishna in my back pocket, I will tell you what he wants, is lying to you. Fortunately, Hindus don't do that so often. If you were the Qutb al-Zaman, that's the pole of the age, the one person through which the grace of the divine moves as the first step down transformer. If you were that person, chances are you wouldn't know. That's what my teachers have said to me. The Abdals, the Qutub, they don't know. Why should they even need to know?
Right. Seems right.
You know, they're doing their job, just being human. And they certainly, if somebody's students are going around saying, hey, psst, my teacher is actually the Qutb al-Zaman. If you want to follow the real stuff, come follow him. That is pretty much a sign you should maybe just start looking for the exits.
I mean, this is even true on a smaller scale too, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't talk about, hyping up where people, their stations, like with a student, let's say, feeding their ego or breaking them down by telling them what their station might be. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter. Just do the stuff. It doesn't matter. Your behavior is what is true. The rest is just a distraction.
Damn rights. What she said. So, the next bit of adab. Do not meddle in the affairs of others. Don't become intimate with the rich and the powerful. Never go where you have not been invited. These are really important. For me, one of the more irritating things for somebody to say to me is, "Oh, I'll pray for you." It's like, motherfucker, I didn't ask you to pray for me.
So ornery today. Depends on who says it and how. That's how I feel about it.
It's usually said in an extremely condescending tone.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, sweetie, I will pray for you. Yeah, I mean, we can avoid that to the
Yeah.
best of our ability. Avoid being condescending to people like that.
And never assume that you know what the person needs or that you have what the person needs. Maybe you even know what they need, but if they don't have the will to ask for it, you have no business trying to give it to them.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if someone asks me to pray for them, I don't know what it will do, but I will certainly do it
Yeah.
because I care, and that's one way for me to show it.
Many years ago, I liked Coldplay for a while, but there was a certain song of theirs which has the line, "I will fix you."
Oh, yes.
And I started really, I hated that. And so I stopped listening to them.
So that really put you off. There was something about that that was.
Well, it was the assumption that they knew, A, that there was something wrong with you, which was not necessarily the case, and B, that they thought they knew how to fix it.
Yeah, it's kind of patronizing.
Yeah.
It's hugely patronizing.
I started disliking the Police song, Every Breath You Take.
Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
god, Mushtaq and I hate that song.
Yeah. It's a stalker
It's song
song.
about a stalker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about a stalker. I
Yeah,
don't know why
yeah.
people think the love song was weird.
Weird,
And we
weird.
don't like stalkers. Nora's had to deal with a stalker.
Yeah.
My
It's what you
sympathies.
get for being cute, female, and on the internets.
Yep. And you know what? It's totally okay to think I'm cute. Thank you very much. But there are healthy and unhealthy ways to deal with how you feel about that. This person unfortunately has chosen quite unhealthy ways to wrestle with whatever it is that they're feeling. And that is not my problem.
Yeah, I've got a friend whose ex-husband stalked her for many years. I assume that not an issue now because she got married many years ago, but for a particular time when I knew her, she was still dealing with it, and it was a real hassle.
Yeah.
In fact, she changed her name, moved, and took a lot of care to not expose herself. For example, she's still not on Facebook. She
That's
doesn't want that exposure.
yeah. I mean, this is talk about treating people like objects, right? And not being able to have the cultural adab to understand how wrong it is to treat people that way. Because we know that wasn't on her. I think we can say that pretty safely.
Quite definitely.
So our next suggestion from the wise ones of the past: do not become attached to any place. Your home is not in any particular abode. So, does that mean that you should be a wanderer? No, not necessarily. Have a home, but live in the home as if you were a traveler. You know the old Sufi story, right? Guy comes to a Sufi, a Brit. It's always a Brit. Comes to a Sufi, and he's invited into his house. And he looks around, and there's no furniture. There's a sleeping mat, a lamp, and that's it. And the man looks and says, "Where's your furniture?" And the Sufi looks at him and says, "Where's yours?" And he says, "I don't live here." The Sufi said, "Neither do I." That's the state you want. And that's not to say you shouldn't have a comfy bed to sleep in. I just realized that that's a transitory thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, just general non-attachment. This is one that people don't understand a lot.
Yeah.
Make sure, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think people confuse like neurotic non-attachment with like healthy
Yeah,
non-attachment.
Just that.
Um,
And no, I
yeah,
have a,
Frank was gonna speak and
yeah.
then James.
Okay.
I wanted to say I'm aware of why one shouldn't. And after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, a lot of people lost a lot of things they never intended to lose. And a lot of lives were ruined even after they were restored because they had lost all of their precious items. We keep seeing it happen down here, and people still cling to that is not going to be with them. So you can't take it with you when you go. And I've seen it ruin a lot of people down here in Hurricane Alley. So that was just what I was going to say.
Yeah. James, you had a thought.
Just when you were talking about a dwelling, uh, many people when they get a house, it becomes an elaboration and a demonstration of their self-image, of their conceptual self, their idealized self. It's the attachment is not just the reality of you're clinging to something that may be damaged and you'll get upset when it gets damaged, but the whole thing becomes a display, even if it's just a display back to yourself of some fantasy of yourself, or it's a huge display to other people, either in its ostentation or in its carefully contrived humility or whatever. So not just the practical thing of, this will pass. It may be hit by lightning, you may have to move out, whatever, but it's the subtler thing of not turning the things around you and the things that come into your life, that are graced into your life, into a huge self-display. So this particular principle sort of undercuts that, or exposes that tendency to turn the phenomena around you into something you manipulate as opposed to something you revere. That's the thought I was having. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Another line of Adab. Make sure your use of music and movement is well balanced.
Wow.
I keep muting myself. Shuri, did you have a thought? I'm sorry, Mushtaq, before we move on to
Okay.
music and
I was just going to contribute a personal experience of my husband built a beautiful Japanese flavored style house. And during the GFC, we lost a lot of money and had to sell it. And that attachment to, I created this, I made this, and it had a beautiful garden, Japanese garden and so forth. And that was the biggest blessing in our life, because we had to change our attitude overnight, almost immediately, because it was devastating, no doubt about it. But it was just like, if you're ever going to get through and move forward in life, it's always, well, that just liberated us from blah, 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 blah. You can just say that and say, as long as we got a roof over our head, a bed, a hot shower, food, we got full tummy, we could be eating potatoes for the next 3 weeks, but that's okay, we're full. And we just had to do that to not let ourselves slide into a horrible depression and devastation, so that we couldn't move forward. And I found that we've had to do that repeatedly in the last 15 years, because we've had to keep changing our abode. And so the current place we're living in now, we don't own it, but I always say we can make a home anywhere. And I find that you have to find, how do I liberate myself from, those things that we put our essential self onto. So a friend at the moment, he is having a dreadful time selling the business that he created. And I said, but you're not that business. You're not a business. That's not you. It's just something that you did. And that's very, very hard for people to not identify with things they own, whether it's a home, whether it's a business, whether it's a car. A car is a big thing too, that whole status thing. So I think God has actually been really instrumental in helping me let go of that identification with all of those things. And it's just like, oh, what a relief. I said, I still can't take it with me. I still can't when I die, and whatever gets passed to me, if I can share it, that's a good thing. I think that's where we're actually learning to be conduits for the things that come our way. So you are not that thing, you are not that place, even a location. I find people identify, I'm from Perth, or I'm from Brisbane, or I'm from Sydney or Melbourne, and they hang on to that identity. And I think the best thing a Tibetan monk said to me when I asked him if he missed Tibet, and he said, one planet, one earth, one home.
Oh,
I think, oh yeah, wherever you are, you can make home, wherever you are. And that's that expression of love and care and generosity that we're trying to do.
I think that ties in well to the overall discussion of, our teacher used to say, get out of your own way so that God can work through you, basically. Yeah.
So back to music.
Back to music.
Back to music.
Thanks for that.
So, music and movement are important to many tariqas for different reasons. Some tariqas use music for trance experience. Some are very good at that. If you want to experience super duper trance music, you go to the Maghreb, you go to the western part of North Africa. They have the best trance music in the world. And that'll take you places. That's not particularly our thing. But we do not look down upon it because it is useful and effective and really kind of cool. When I was a young dervish doing the wandering dervish thing, anytime I landed in a place, one of the first things I would look for is to see if there was a SURS group. You all know SURS, Sufi Islami Ruhaniyat Society, founded by Samuel Lewis back in the late 60s. It's the Sufi dance people. And they're all laughed at by the serious Islamic Sufis and everything. But in my experience, they're some of the sweetest people that I ever met. They have great sincerity and they're fun to be around. And they're usually really good musicians. And yes, they will do circle dances and they will sing happy little songs. And they're very cool people. Diva, were you involved with those or were you involved with the Sufi Order of the West?
I was Nimatalali.
Okay.
We didn't dance.
No, not the ones in the West.
Yeah.
Osama.
Yeah, so music is very close to me. It's my pretty much my reference point to unconditional love. An interesting thing happened this weekend as I was in that Sama ceremony, which is what you just described, Mushtaq, pretty much. And it can be easily, just like any other group, just for the experience. Like I can see that if I am not familiar with self-observation, self-remembrance, and self-witnessing and these concepts and practices, that I can easily fall into just going from one experience to another, from one sama to another, and just to be in that space filled with music. However, because part of what I'm working on is embodiment, to be in my body. Yesterday, when I was playing the drum and stuff like that, there were moments where this observation or witnessing took place, that my body and the drum, it became one. There was this this experience of like in witnessing my body be a body, pretty much. as it's hitting the drum. And it's these experiences that after the fact, I can sit down and do self-observation and do these other practices like muhasaba and all that kind of stuff, and take the juice from the sama, from the music, from the dancing, from the whirling and all that kind of stuff. But I can see how it can be just another trap, another ayahuasca trip, another that kind of experience. Yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and that is well balanced. Whitney,
Could you read it again, please?
yes. Make sure your use of music and movement is well balanced.
I'm just I've taught ballroom dancing for a very long time, and there are so many different genres. You know, you have two-step, you have tango, you have salsa, you have all the Latin flavors. And being that I do all of them, there's the different groups with their different flavors, their different feels. And it is interesting to see just how the music does bring out these different elements from inside of you. I also do Gurdjieff movements, and the dynamic of the different songs that are played and what they elicit from you. And then also too, with the Gurdjieff movements, you're doing gestures that you are completely unnatural. They're not things that your body is used to. So it challenges you in a new way. And so I like this one particularly because it does have to do with the body and eliciting these different, almost like instincts within you. And it's funny when people are afraid to dance, they're afraid of what might happen, how do I move within this? What am I supposed to do? And they're trapped in their head. And they want to use their head to dance.
Which is
as
such
opposed
a good
to
way to fall on your face.
yes.
Speaking
Or
from
to just
experience.
walk out.
Yeah, to walk out too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I do like this one because music does, it brings out such different aspects from inside of you to be well balanced within it instead of, you know, one trick pony. You really get to explore like the flavor of your humanity and all these different elements of you that you wouldn't otherwise without the music.
Definitely. And that's one thing that's special about this is, you know, there are a lot of threads of the Islamic tradition that seem to treat music as unwelcome, as, you know, not good,
Haram.
as distracting, haram. Yeah, all of those things. Those are the reasons why it is said to be haram. And although we can, from all of the examples given, see how kind of fostering an environment in which trancing out in a, you know, kind of disembodied, unpresent sort of way can be detrimental. There is, as many of us have experienced, there is a place for music that allows us to gain access to being present, to feeling alive, to truly feeling alive, not just having the facsimile of that.
And as I like to say, if God actually hated music, why would he create the universe out of it? Think about that.
I have always thought about that, and that's what makes it all the more frustrating when you have these conservative types come along who just, it's like, are they in denial? Have they never felt it? You're lying to me. I don't believe you. Yeah. So they're afraid. I think many of them are afraid of the experience they've had where music has stirred something in them.
And
They don't know
remember
what to do with that.
what Mr. Miyagi said, never trust a holy man who can't dance. There is profound truth in that.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're about to get into a couple of doozies, but I highly, if you haven't taken the time to listen to the music that Mr. Gurdjieff and Mr. de Hartman composed, you can find it on the interweb for free. You can find it on YouTube for free. Listen to it because it's very interesting. And imagine what it would be like to move to it, and wouldn't necessarily be easy, but it might be fun. So the next one we have here is value your speech and your sleep. Spend your words wisely. Treat food as if it were medicine, because it is. Cultivate solitude and avoid the company of the willfully ignorant. Avoid marriage until you can make a match with someone with whom you are truly compatible. They all kind of go together.
Yeah, this is a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
This seems kind of like hygiene stuff, like personal well-being, not like, scrubbing your armpits kind of stuff, but
That could fit in, especially.
sure, that is good Adab, by the way. But uh yeah, being clean, good Adab.
Yeah.
But yes, valuing your sleep, it was saying, right? Your speech
Yes.
and your sleep.
Value your speech and your sleep. That means that you don't spend unwisely of your speech and you don't spend unwisely of your sleep. Don't sleep too little. Don't sleep too much. What is the balance? This is all about balance. Even to the point where it says, don't get married until you can find somebody with whom you are truly compatible. And think about what that means.
That is also different from the standard, traditional advice, which is get married as soon as possible so you can avoid sin and cause yourself, spare yourself a whole lot of trouble and drama. Only to find out that you just landed yourself in so much damn drama you don't even know what happened, and you can't get out of it because now you've got all these attachments and family obligations. And slow your roll. It's okay.
And for us, the ideal partner is the one whom you can support in their work and who will support you in your work. And I'm here to tell you that it is, in fact, a reality that you can do this.
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Not to point at ourselves. I'll point at her.
Yeah, I mean, we become each other's work in some way, and we appreciate it that way.
Yeah. Though you're not very much work.
I'll try a little harder then.
Okay.
Hopefully you're up to the challenge.
Inshallah. But
it could be, that you have different paths, but can you be compatible in the sense that you are supportive of each other's paths? You're excited for each other.
So there is that. Then we've got 2 to go, and I'm just going to go through them because it's getting a little late. Do not embellish your outer person, because ornament is a mark of inner poverty. That doesn't mean don't look good. That means don't go crazy. Most especially, though, it means don't wear a costume. This is not talking about, Nor will, if we're going someplace, she will dress nicely, much more nicely than me, unless she hits me or something, then I might put on a button-up shirt. But that's not what it's talking about. Think about the guys who have the big turbans and wear them everywhere, even though they're originally American. They wear costumes, they wear Sufi suits, they wear things that show everybody, hey, look at me, I'm this important dervish, look how big my turban is.
Yeah, or even just as simple as, like, the affectation of holding a tasbih, the prayer beads, and you're always seen with it. Oh, you're so pious. Everybody sees you with those. You're always counting, but really they're your fidget tool. They don't really serve any other purpose except like being your spiritual bling. And you know, that's a problem. That's a problem. And that again is unique to the Islamic context or the Sufi context if you're talking about the religious uh out performances of that. But I'm sure that we could locate corollaries in other traditions and in other subcultures and
Yeah, all you have to do is look at Christian ministers. They all have costumes,
yeah.
one way or another, and that goes from Southern Baptists to Catholics.
Yep.
We like the clothes that make us look special. And as I like to say, for our tariqa, the special Sufi dress is t-shirt, blue jeans, and a ball cap.
I'm not wearing those things, but yes.
I gotta say, your t-shirt is a Sufi t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen it? Have you seen the whole shirt? Yeah.
You have to be into Avatar: The Next Airbender to really understand this shirt.
So it's Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the text says, "Make tea, not war." And if you have not watched that show, you should. So I'm not going to be spoiling it for you, but this is a character who is close to our hearts.
Yep.
Good advice.
I love Uncle Iroh, and we have this joke in my house where we say like that you should be who Uncle Iroh wants you to be. Are you living up to Uncle Iroh's image of you? It's
Always good advice, yes.
Make him proud.
Yeah, he's someone I think our veterans can really appreciate. So
Yeah. And he's the one character in the entire story that will make you cry.
Yeah, that's the guaranteed one.
Yeah.
Ah,
James.
Oh, right. Um, now wearing a costume, from sort of my mid-teens on, I spent all up probably about 25 years in the goth and punk subcultures, which is very much a total package on how you dress, how you speak, what you listen to. And starts off as raving affectation, but um I still feel uncomfortable. Like it still feels weird for me to dress outside of that, even though I don't do it as conspicuously inside of it as I used to. Like I usually wear all black. If I'm not wearing all black, I might have a camo print or something going on, or a weird ass t-shirt. But to me, that's become normal. And where I live, it's sort of normal as well. Um, I'm not sure the point I'm trying to make here. Uh, it doesn't seem like an affectation to me. It seems like the natural way to dress. Though once I did an experiment of dressing in all white and wandering around the area, and people didn't recognize me, which was interesting. But
So see, the
no,
thing is that you have made it a habit.
yes,
It's not the clothes itself, it's your habit around the clothes.
yes,
You are identified with the clothes.
yeah.
Can you be goth in blue jeans and a button-down shirt?
Can't afford blue jeans.
Okay, well, theoretically speaking, let's say.
Yeah, I'm being sorry. I
Go
was
to
being
the thrift
silly.
store, man.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to be goth anymore in the I'll say the ideological sense because it's vacuous, and punk became utterly self-destructive and incredibly nihilistic. Uh, a lot of punks just dropped the term and just called themselves DIY, do it yourself, which is probably the healthiest thing that happened to the entire subculture. Um, but it's more just if I put on if I was to put on like I don't know a beige business suit, it would be trippy for me. It would feel weird. Um, I find it hard to express what I'm saying. It that would feel like an affectation. Um, yeah, I think I've said everything I can on that. It's just, yeah, okay.
I think
Sorry.
no, no, it's okay, James, because this is a real life application, right?
Yeah.
So Anissa was saying, I relate to that, James, and adds, isn't it all a costume, even the blue jeans and white shirt?
In
Yes.
some places, yes.
So, Whitney, do you have a response to this, or something you'd like to add?
I taught in a high school for a number of years, and it was very interesting to see these like prescription packages of kids to sign up for. Like, I'm the goth person, I'm the jock, I'm the this, that, or the other. There's like, and you'll see it in colleges too, of like these particular ways that you can identify to show how you relate to the world.
Yeah.
And I'm
You find
reminded
your
of
affinity
this.
group.
What's that?
To find your affinity group.
Yes, you find your group to that you identify with and agree with and have some sort of consensus with. I'm reminded of this woman who her children never saw her without makeup on. Never saw her. She would get up early in the morning, do her hair and her makeup, and her kids never saw her face. And I think about times where I will put on makeup and it will be too much and I don't recognize myself and I will take it off unless I'm going to a costume party, then I'll, embrace it. But just for the people, like the woman who never took her makeup off, like you don't end up recognizing who you are when you've played in the costume for so long. It's almost like, what do I look like without this? Who am I without this identity? Who am I? So I like this one because it is a prescription, it's an identification when you decide to wear the costume, wear the makeup, play the whole bit.
Yeah.
See, my I just want to point out that dressing up is not the problem here necessarily, right?
Yeah.
It's not. So I don't want us to feel discouraged about how we might choose to express ourselves in the world as a creative pursuit. But it's this identifying factor. That's what we need to look at. How am I letting my clothes wear me?
And for the most part, for a Sufi, you want to wear clothes that say, "Yeah, I'm nobody special."
Yeah, I mean, that's another aspect to this where there is this added element of, as we've said, self-discipline, right? We are cultivating a certain degree of ability to not just follow our desires, but to home in on our intentions and act in accordance with those. And so that may require certain things from us. Like if we want to, as much as I hate to say it, if we want to have a certain kind of job, what kind of things do we need to live up to in order to, have that intention become a reality? And we can always find ways to challenge those things, and we will often find ways in which, even when we challenge, we get pushed back against. So this is about finding balance there as well.
I've had experiences with wearing suits to work, something as simple as that. I remember being promoted from the ranks to management and having to dress up, as I put it back then.
Mm.
That's not who I represented. It's not who I was, but I had to be that. And it got to the point where when I put those on, I became a different person. And I longed to get out of the position that I was in, because every time that I did at the close of the day, I could go back to me. There was an obvious separation of who I thought I was or who I thought I needed to be and who I wanted to be. And that division was driven by so many things, but it was so highlighted every day by me not dressing the way that I wanted to. I think maybe this is more of a negative as to the way that you're presenting it. But I mean, I found that to be pretty caustic to me in the long haul, not wanting to do it, but doing it and then being so appreciative when I could get away from it. I guess I felt I was compelled to do it by my peers, by upper levels of management, to act a certain way that they decided upon. And it all began and ended with my uniform. And
Yeah.
everything had to be just so. And if you weren't carrying a finning to make a telephone call, or you weren't carrying this is from the very beginning. If you weren't prepared to perform, and it was up to somebody to decide whether or not you were actually prepared to perform. So how they determined that would be their mood that they had that day, are based upon their ability to not utilize the very people that we're talking about now, the elders that gives you the things that you need to follow. I don't know. I can certainly see this where it's played out in my life. So thank you guys for this topic.
Mm-hmm. All right, James, did you have another thought you wanted to add?
Oh, guys, I had muted myself.
Oh,
No. That was all I was sort of ranting about. I mean, I can elaborate on it. It's
Well,
weird how different appearances intersect in Melbourne and different little subcultures and stuff. I think because Melbourne has a smaller population, they tend to blend and merge a bit more. So it's, but yeah, just certain things you become comfortable with, I suppose, identified with. I suppose there's the assumption that if I was to dress in a three-piece business suit, I'd sold out to the capitalist pigs or something like that. Um, yeah, I'll mute myself now. I'm just going to waffle
Okay.
otherwise.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways about this one, especially in an era where, you know, there is a lot of cultural emphasis on self-expression and individuality in a way that probably was not so much the case when this this advice was given. So, you know, we have to bring it into our context. And one thing I would say is important is being aware of our relationship to our presentation. So not only is it about, like, you know, are you wearing your clothes, but are your clothes wearing you? But like, are you able to wear your persona lightly? If you have to have one, can you wear it lightly? Can you be aware of its effect on you as you move through different spaces and its effect on others as well? So the person who has prayer beads in their hand all the time and is obsessed with being seen with them, they're thinking about their image in a way that is very much ego involved. And perhaps it inspires people to do the same, but it's coming from a place of non-benefit, essentially. Same thing with the turban, to tie it back to the traditional imagery that we see among Sufis and stuff. And those are the things that we can be cognizant of and include into our daily sense of self-observation, self-remembering, self-witnessing. And it's just normal stuff. This is stuff that we engage with all the time, every day.
I spend my time basically in one of my treasured t-shirts and sweatpants. I've been fortunate to have the freedom to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I don't really want to play with my appearance. And sometimes it feels like I don't know how to be a human being.
It's hard enough, right? Things are complicated enough without getting too caught up in the appearances of things sometimes.
Mhm.
And quickly, Anissa asked, isn't it all a costume, even blue jeans and a white shirt? And absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean about wearing these things lightly, and I mean that both literally and figuratively.
So I'm going to read the last bit here because it's important. And then we'd be done. Never quarrel with people and never ask favors from anyone. Be sure that you are a burden to no one. Put no confidence in the world or in worldly people. Let your heart be filled with humility. Be in your body. Embrace your emotions, but do not identify with them. Let your actions be straightforward and your prayer sincere. Choose a poor person for your companion. Let your home be a house of prayer, and let the highest truth be your guide. And that's the end of the list that I wrote out.
Would you be up
Well,
for reading that one more time, Mushtaq?
Okay,
Sorry, even one moment.
never quarrel with people and never ask favors from anyone. Be sure that you are a burden to no one. Put no confidence in the world and in worldly people. Let your heart be filled with humility. Be in your body. Embrace your emotions, but do not identify with them. Let your actions be straightforward and your prayers be sincere. Choose a poor person for your companion. Let your home be a house of prayer, and let the highest truth be your guide.
Thanks, Mushtaq.
That's some heavy instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say they definitely got far more verbose towards the end.
Yeah.
Anisa asks, where do I find these adabs? I want to have a thorough reading of them. And the answer is, because you are a member of the Nine-Sided Circle Forum, you will be able to download these adabs as a PDF within the next day or so, and keep them forever.
Yeah, I think we did a copy of these, right? You and I. We worked on it.
I have a copy of them.
Yeah.
That's why I was reading off of them. That's what I was working on today, is making sure I got all the ones that I wanted down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
And they come from various different teachers of our particular tariqah, starting with Abdul Khalik Gurjwani and going on from there.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have these on hand to contemplate and
Yeah. You can look at them and go, oh, I'm not doing so bad. Or, wow, some work to do.
gotta get my shit together. Yeah. As we
Um,
all do. Whitney.
Yes.
The embrace your emotions, but do not identify with them. Is it Rumi who has the poem that he talks about all of your emotions, welcome them with an open door into your house and entertain all of them as welcomed guests and let them go. It's almost like you don't identify them. It's not me, it's this guest that's coming in, and then it can go when it's embraced and then can be let back out the door. It's not me.
Yes. I think
Exactly.
that that's Rumi, but
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Rumi, but I think so, and it's the right idea.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it is definitely the right idea.
Osama.
Yeah, can we quickly talk about the favors, Adab?
Yes.
I'm trying to find why it was introduced in there and what the balance of that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
A little more context, just because for me, it's mainly that's pretty much the default to sometimes not a good, like I'm trying to do everything on my own, where sometimes I can definitely allow for support to come in or favors or whatever it is. I don't know is there a difference between favors and support? Maybe that's a
Yes,
better question.
there is a difference between favors and support. There is a kind of dervish. It doesn't even have to be a dervish. There's a kind of person who will ask for favors just because it makes their life easier, and they don't contemplate what effect they are having on the people around them. I remember some years ago, a really good friend of mine got this guy who we both knew a job at his place of employment, and because he had been out of work, and the guy every time, almost every day, would bum $5 off of him for lunch. And my friend was feeling very weird about this because they were both pulling down the same pay. And it's like, why is he asking me for this? And it basically ruined their friendship, because my friend was feeling like he was being taken advantage of. And that's what favors tend to do, is to take advantage of people. You can allow yourself to be supported. There's nothing wrong with that. We do that every week when we say, hey, if you like us, make a
Give us all your money.
drop some money in the pot as it goes around. The Koshkul is coming your way.
Yeah, but without obligation, without guilt, and also with a sense of, it's like a shared endeavor as
Yeah.
opposed to just, draining the well, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up because there's a distinction to be made here.
And I think this is an important lesson, especially for many of us who tend to be more on the, oh, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to impose or whatever. And yet are hungry for connection. And one way to create community and connection is to foster a certain degree of interdependence, a certain degree of like everybody having skin in the game, so that you're working together towards shared aims and you're all invested in some way. But obviously this is different from just being like, hey man, I know I asked you for like 20 bucks yesterday, but hey, got any more money in your wallet that I can have? Like that's where it becomes, like I said, draining the well as opposed
Yeah.
to
And this
watering
is
the community.
extremely important for teachers.
Oh my God, I'm thinking of like prosperity gospel type shit now.
Yeah, I'm thinking of teachers who I have known who have used this to take advantage of their students.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one acquaintance of mine who went to study with this big martial arts teacher and spent the weekend cleaning his garage for him. And he paid a lot of money to train. He got maybe an hour's worth of training and a whole lot of experience in how to clean a garage.
Favors.
Yeah. And that's different than working together in service to the tariqa. But that's not something that you get wheedled out of you.
Yeah, or even, when someone in the group has a hard time and we're like, hey guys, can you send some money to so and so's PayPal? Because they're trying to make rent this month and they're dealing with like flood damage and all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, we've done that. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, it was flood damage when
So and
Cherie's
so.
house
Oh,
was
Cherie.
floating
Yes.
down the river.
I didn't want to talk about people who weren't here, but Cherie is here, and yes, yep.
And she never asked for that.
Yep.
Right? She never said, hey, can you do me a favor? We looked at her and went, she needs a favor. She needs a little help. And so people did what they could.
And from time to time, if you ask, then yeah, you just might receive too.
I hope I didn't embarrass you, Cherie.
No.
No, I'm not embarrassed. And at the time that we did need the help, but also likewise, the balancing was that I also help others and do other things. And I've had the most amazing thing happen to me recently that's allowed me on the other side to come to your retreat. And if that hadn't happened. So I find that I'm very careful with serving and giving, not to the point of resentment, because I can overdo that. And that's the tipping into, I hate doing this and I hate going over to that person's house and doing blah, 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 blah. And so I've learned with Mushtaq's help, actually, when we were having a lot of chats together, that, I have to actually really feel it in my body. This is okay to do. I'm ready to do this, and there's no problem. And there's no, they have to return the favor thing, because it all comes around again. And I have offered help to other people, and I haven't expected anything too much in return, but Mushtaq knows the teacher I was listening to prior to this group, and he always said to me, don't give away your service for nothing. Make sure something comes back. And it's been a great lesson where if someone wants to work with me in their movement work and they can't afford it, I say, pay me with an apple. And they do. And it has been taken up. I said, don't mention it. Don't tell anybody. I said that, but I would rather see you and you participate in the group just like everybody else. No one needs to know that you paid me with an apple, because it all comes around and balances out. So that's part of my own practice to make sure that I am open to help from other people, because otherwise there's no service happening if there's no receiver. So I think, ooh, suck it up, Cherie, and just let someone help me. And I think, I know I could do it, but I think it's actually quite lovely, and you see the joy on that person's face because they helped you or they offered something. And like funny, our funny. Well, she actually came to our nursery and she helped me physically with our landscape nursery to recover after big storm damage. And I thought that was amazing. She didn't ask for anything and she worked hard. There was no shirking. And I think that was a lesson for me too. If you're going to give, if you're going to help, don't shirk, because it can happen. And that made it a gift I was very grateful to receive, because I knew there was no emotional taint that was exactly that. It would taint it if she would put something on me or expect something in return.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Whitney's using the words reciprocal exchange, and that is something I think we all strive for here is, however we can facilitate keeping the energy moving instead of getting stagnant in one place from one person to the next in the community. That's really important. Thanks, Sheree. Yeah, is there anything else that people remember that they want to touch on or ask about? Alka?
There's one thing that's coming to my mind, at least for my personal experience. We should also drop our personal stories in this path. That's what I feel like. I
Yeah,
need to drop my personal stories. I just wanted to add that.
yeah, and a lot of this is instruction on how to go about doing that.
The practical ways of doing that. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Alka.
And with the idea of being sure that you're never a burden to anybody, even if you are a wandering dervish and you have nothing. So when I was a young hippie, I did a lot of traveling. And this was back in the days where you would crash at people's houses and all this sort of thing. And I rarely had much money, but I did have skills. And one of the skills that I have, which turned out to be incredibly useful, is that I know how to sharpen a knife and a pair of scissors. And so I would sit around in a kitchen and sharpen every knife in the house, sharpen all the scissors. I always carried a whetstone with me. And some of those knives that were supposed to be like cooking knives were so dull that you could barely cut butter with them. And people were grateful. Probably weird to do that today, but the 60s were a different time. So anything can be of use to people.
Hmm. Well, I wish we had time to go through each of them one by one deeply, but I don't think we'll be able to do that this evening, unfortunately. I think we've done a pretty good job, though, of figuring out how to take these out of their sort of, literary, distant context and make them real for us, though. And that's the important thing. And I'm sure that we will revisit these again before long because
Oh,
this
yes.
topic is so very important.
Yeah, we have barely grazed this topic. And I have mentioned this event more than once. My teacher and I went to some place where they had invited him because they wanted the teachings. And he went. And as we left, he said to me, I can't go back there. If they want the teachings, I'm going to have to send you, and you're going to have to teach them how to be with a teacher because they have no adab.
Do you remember any details about what it was that he felt like, oh, this just is not working right now?
Yeah, I'm very clear on what they were. They did not know how to respect him as a teacher.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to treat him as a guest.
Yeah. That's kind of a lost art these days.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I went back there 3 or 4 times before he would go back again.
Yep. Because, I mean, I've said this before, there's a lot of energy output in being the teacher in a given setting. And if you're not in an environment where people can appreciate that you're giving your all to them, that you're doing your best to be present, to answer their questions, to be there for them in that setting, if they don't understand that you're putting that out there for them, it can be even more draining. It can be devastating. And so it really helps to have people receiving who understand, like, perhaps to do something as simple as set water beside you, or make sure you have a comfortable pillow, or that the lighting is right and that people are listening attentively to you.
Or that you have some food.
Yeah, because you gotta eat, you gotta refuel in the mix of all that. Yeah. Do you have a place to sleep that allows you to rest your bones? Especially if it's a multi-day thing. Some people are just like, what can you dump on me in terms of your wisdom?
I think that applies in a secular setting as well.
Oh,
It's not
100%.
it's not peculiar to
It's not. It's not. I absolutely mean that in pretty much any setting where you have someone who's coming to share things with you that you consider to be of value, but really, you end up objectifying them because they've served their purpose and they don't need anything in return, apparently. But this comes back to, reciprocal care, reciprocal exchange. No one should be exploited. So how do we find ways to to foster an alternative scenario where everybody gets fueled within.
Power of God.
What's that, Frank?
I'm sorry, I thought I was muted. I said that's the power of God. When I put my thoughts on God, I receive a power that allows me to get out of my own way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not as if I don't have any special thing that happens to me. It's just that my head clears. My head clears, and I can see I'm breathing, and then I can pay attention to those things that really mean things to me. I'm alive. Where did all this come from? That kind of thing, and then experience it as it happens, not as I want it to be, and to taste it as it's given. You know, that's the thing. I suppose. I don't know. I think I'm rambling now.
Well, I think that applies, right? Because in a moment where you have teacher and student sharing, it is amazing when both are plugged into that sense of it being about, you know, the divine reality, the Tao, the thing that is bigger than everyone in that room, that they are engaging with together. Shuri.
I was just thinking along the same of Frank that this whole group is an expression of God. If we are, this is how God is expressing what we're trying to learn here. And I think as student teacher, we're not persecuting one another when there's criticism or, you know, there's a correction of something. It's not when people take it personal in that way. I think we've lost what was the purpose of that correction. So it's, I think, a safe place to get criticized, which is something that helps open me up. I think, oh, maybe, yeah, I'm doing that, or I'm doing this or something. It's how we say it, which is really important, and then followed by the behavior that's showing whether we're being able to change that direction of whatever it is that we needed to know about. That's, you know, that's the only way I can express it right now.
Yeah. One of these days we're going to have to do deeper adab, because there's so much we need to talk about and we're kind of out of time.
But this was such a great start, everyone.
Yeah,
So
it was. And I am delighted with all of the input you guys have given us. It's been incredibly useful. And every time we do something like this, it helps formulate things more clearly.
Yeah.
So if this is better after this, it's all y'all fault.
All right. Well, I do know that we've got a couple things to do after we wrap up. So why don't we go to Brady Bunch mode, Mushtaq?
Wow, we're in Brady Bunch mode.
Well, thank you for an amazing and full day, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our Two Talk Sunday. We'll be having the next one on, I guess, God willing, because I don't know what I'll be up to then. It's going to be July 21st. Okay. All right, that works. In the meanwhile, we will see you next week at our usual time, and take care till then, everybody. All right.
Anissa, thank you for being here.
Night, Anissa. Take care.
Take care.